make it a little sneak attack too. I tried to lock him out of my room, but here he is. Okay, guys, welcome back to another episode of the Read Aloud. Yesterday I was out walking on back bed. First time I've been out exercising since quarantine. Yeah. And it was like the world was trying to tell me something. The universe was trying to say, hey, you're out here, you're doing it, yay. And so I saw this beautiful like heart in the sand, and I'm like, oh my God, someone's like giving me some encouragement. Love it. And then I kept going, and there's a beautiful sunset. I'm like, wow, this is really beautiful. I need to get out more often. Seriously. And then there was this sign, like a literal sign, not like a metaphorical sign. And it said, oh shoot, where's my phone? I took a picture of it. It was like, keep showing up. And I was like, oh my God, that's like 3 different omens in one hour. Like the universe is telling me, get your booty outside and keep walking. And now I kind of get it. I'm reading The Alchemist now with a new lens, being like, all right, Santiago is not super spiritual or kind of weird. Like, yeah, things happen and they have meaning for us because they relate to our personal journeys. So speaking of Santiago, our boy has met the Alchemist. And I don't even think the Englishman knows that. And he's going to be pissed when he finds out, because that's the reason why he went to the Oasis in the first place. But he convinced Santiago to sell his camel and buy a horse. So he did that. And then the Alchemist was like, I'm going to test you, boy. I need to see if you can see signs. What did he say? He said, show me where there is life out of the desert. Only those who can see such signs of life are able to find treasure. So obviously deserts, not much grows. And he's saying, if you can find some life, then you're special, kid. And then there was like this weird thing with a snake. The Alchemist like sticks his hands in a hole and he's like, whatcha, I got a cobra. And the kid's freaking out. He's like, oh my God, they're poisonous. What are you doing? You're gonna die. Okay. And then I think I left off with 118. And he was like, all right, come with me. And he's like, no, I can't. I love the Oasis. I love Fatima. I can't leave. And yeah, I think that's exactly where I left off. So I want to stay at the Oasis, the boy answered. I found Fatima, and as far as I'm concerned, she's worth more than treasure. Ooh, so cute. Fatima is a woman of the desert, said the Alchemist. She knows that men have to go away in order to return, and she already has her treasure. It's you. Now she expects that you will find what it is that you're looking for. Well, what if I decide to stay? Let me tell you what will happen. You'll be the counselor of the Oasis. You'll have enough gold to buy many sheep and many camels. You'll marry Fatima, and you'll both be happy for a year. You'll learn to love the desert, and you'll get to know every one of the 50,000 palms. You'll watch them as they grow, demonstrating how the world is always changing, and you'll get better and better at understanding omens, because the desert is the best teacher there is. Sometime during the 2nd year, you'll remember about the treasure. The omens will begin insistently to speak of it, and you'll try to ignore them. You'll use your knowledge for the welfare of the Oasis and its inhabitants. The tribal chieftains will appreciate what you do, and your camels will bring you wealth and power. During the 3rd year, the omens will continue to speak of your treasure and your personal legend. You'll walk around night after night at the Oasis, and Fatima will be unhappy because she'll feel it. She'll feel it was she who interrupted your quest. But you will love her, and she'll return your love. You'll remember that she never asked you to stay because a woman of the desert knows that she must await her man. So you won't blame her, but many times you'll walk the sands of the desert thinking that maybe you could have left, that you could have trusted more in your love for Fatima, because what kept you at the Oasis was your own fear that you might never come back. At that point, the omens will tell you that your treasure is buried forever. Then sometime during the 4th year, the omens will abandon you because you've stopped listening to them. The tribal chieftains will see that, and you'll be dismissed from your position as counselor. But by then, you'll be a rich merchant with many camels and a great deal of merchandise. You'll spend the rest of your days knowing that you didn't pursue your personal legend, and now that it's too late. Okay, so I wish someone could tell me what was going to happen in like the next 4 or 5 years, like verbatim. That would be lovely. What I think he's trying to say is, if you don't listen to your gut and your inner sense of knowing now, it's not going to work out for you in the long run. Eventually, that dream, that inner knowing will fade, and you'll settle into kind of like a pathetic, meaningless existence. Wow, that was just really unsettling. All right, let's continue. You must understand that love never keeps a man from pursuing his personal legend. If he abandons that pursuit, it's because it wasn't true love. The love that speaks the language of the world. The alchemist erased the circle in the sand, and the snake slithered away among the rocks. Oh yeah, I forgot about that. The alchemist is kind of like a sorcerer, witchcraft something. He like drew a circle in the sand, put the snake in, the snake stayed until now. The boy remembered the crystal merchant who had always wanted to go to Mecca, and the Englishman in search of the alchemist. He thought of the woman who had trusted in the desert, and he looked out over the desert that had brought him to the woman he loved. They mounted their horses, and this time it was the boy who followed the alchemist back to the oasis. The wind brought the sounds of the oasis to them, and the boy tried to hear Fatima's voice. But that night, as he watched the cobra within the circle, strange horseman with the falcon on his shoulder had spoken of love and treasure, of the women of the desert, and of his personal legend. I'm going with you, the boy said, and he immediately felt peace in his heart. We'll leave tomorrow before sunrise, was the alchemist's only response. Yeah! So that's like the call to action adventure, and he is like heeding it full on. Boo, yeah. Time check, 5 minutes. Little page break. The boy spent a sleepless night. Okay. 2 hours before dawn, he woke. One of the boys who slept in his tent asked him to show him where Fatima lived. They went to her tent, and the boy gave his friend enough gold to buy a sheep. Then he asked his friend to go into the tent where Fatima was sleeping and to awaken her and tell her that he was waiting outside. The young Arab did as he was asked and was given enough gold to buy yet another sheep. Now leave us alone, said the boy to the young Arab. The Arab returned to his tent to sleep, proud to have helped the counselor of the oasis and happy at having enough money to buy himself some sheep. Fatima appeared at the entrance of the tent. The two walked out among the palms. The boy knew that it was a violation of the tradition, but that didn't matter to him now. I'm going away, he said, and I want you to know that I'm coming back. I love you because... Don't say anything, Fatima interrupted. One is loved because one is loved. No reason is needed for loving. But the boy continued. I had a dream, and I met with a king. I sold crystal and crossed the desert. And because the tribes declared war, I went to the well, seeking the alchemist. So, I love you because the entire universe conspired to help me find you. The two embraced. It was the first time either had touched the other. I'll be back, the boy said. Before this, I always looked to the desert with longing, said Fatima. Now it will be with hope. My father went away one day, but he returned to my mother, and he has always come back since then. They said nothing else. They walked a bit farther among the palms, and then the boy left her at the entrance to the tent. I'll return just as your father came back to your mother, he said. He saw that Fatima's eyes were filled with tears. You're crying. I'm a woman of the desert, she said, averting her face. But above all, I'm a woman. What the heck does that mean? Just because she's a woman doesn't mean that she can cry. Anyone can cry. Anyone can feel and experience emotions. Yes, Olivier, there's a little sexism in this book. I'm not a huge fan of that. Anyways, Fatima went back to her tent, and when daylight came, she went out to do the chores she had done for years, but everything had changed. The boy was no longer at the oasis, and the oasis would never again have the same meaning it had had only yesterday. It would no longer be a place with 50,000 palm trees and 300 wells where the pilgrims arrived, relieved at the end of their long journeys. From that day on, the oasis would be an empty place for her. From that day on, it was the desert that would be important. She would look to it every day and would try to guess which star the boy was following in search of his treasure. She would have to send her kisses on the wind, hoping that the wind would touch the boy's face and would tell him that she was alive. That she was waiting for him, a woman awaiting a courageous man in search of his treasure. From that day on, the desert would represent only one thing to her, the hope for his return. Let me check. All right, 2 minutes. Anyone else wow, it's one heck of a strong love. They've had all but, I don't know, maybe 2 3 interactions, and here they are, waiting for each other and already experiencing longing. I don't think it really works like that in the real world, but here we are reading The Alchemist. Okay. Don't think about what you've left behind, the alchemist said to the boy as they began to ride across the sands of the desert. Everything is written in the soul of the world, and there it will stay forever. Men dream about Men dream more about coming home than about leaving, the boy said. He was already reaccustomed to the desert's silence. If what one finds is made of pure matter, it will never spoil, and one can always come back. If what you had found was only a moment of light, like the explosion of star, you would find nothing on your return. I'm a little perplexed by that. Okay. The man was speaking the language of alchemy, but the boy knew that he was referring to Fatima. Ooh. It was difficult not to think about what he had left behind. The desert with its endless oh my god. Just deep breaths. Monotony. It's really not a hard word, but I'm really struggling with it. All right, there we go. Put him to dreaming. The boy could still see the palm trees, the wells, and the face of the woman he loved. He could see the Englishman at his experiments and the camel driver who was a teacher without realizing it. Maybe the alchemist has never been in love, the boy thought. The alchemist rode in front with the falcon on his shoulder. The bird knew the language of the desert well, and whenever they stopped, he flew off in search of game. On the first day, he returned with a rabbit, and on the second with 2 birds. At night, they spread their sleeping gear and slept their fire and kept their fires hidden. The desert nights were cold and were becoming darker and darker as the phases of the moon passed. They went on for a week, speaking only of the precautions they needed to follow in order to avoid the battles between the tribes. The war continued, and at times the wind carried the sweet, sickly smell of blood. Battles had been fought nearby, and the wind reminded the boy that there was the language of omens, always ready to show him what his eyes had failed to observe. Hate to leave you there, but I'm going to have to because I got some conferences today. All right, I think I fixed it so that there's I cannot speak today. Editing privileges for everyone, okay? So if I think most of the times are maxed out for Thursday and Friday at this point, but I opened it up for the next 2 weeks. So just make sure that I've at least seen you once, please and thank you. All right, guys, thanks for tuning in. Have a great rest of your day. Please, please, please get outside. Bye. Oops. Should probably stop recording.